And it's not like I'm talking about during the development process. Say, for example, you have what you can do, you can assume that you are running your industry. Okay, you keep that as an assumption that you are the CEO of your company, you are a project manager of the team, you are a software engineer working under the project, you are the tester who is doing testing for your company. So you need to switch on your role at the different point of time based on the discussion. So now when the development is going on, so during the development process, there could be the possibility that you are 100% dependent on a particular team member, say for example. And after sometimes you observe that that team member is not contributing, or he falls sick, or he left the organization, he joined some other organization. Then what will happen? You can't give all these excuse to the client that my team is not there, or someone is sick, or all these things you cannot say. So you have to be very careful with the planning, that what planning you have made and how efficient the planning is, and whether everything is going as per the plan or not. Okay. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Many of you have switched off your video. Switch it on again. Otherwise, it's like teaching in front of the wall, not in front of students. And even this is the first time I'm teaching, I want to see the faces. I could able to understand who all are my students. Please switch on your videos. Okay. So with that as a goal and the objective, let's move to what is the scope of this course. And the scope is this particular statement. You can see I have underlined some of the important point. I'm reading this statement: the production of fault-free software that is delivered on time, within budget, and that satisfies the user need. This single sentence is nothing but this is the complete software engineering. This talks about the first and most important thing here is the last underlined statement words, that is satisfies the user's need. Means you have gathered the requirement, and that requirement, and for which you are going to develop the software, so that should satisfy the need of the user. That is the first thing. Second thing is it should be delivered on time. Third is fault-free software, means the quality of software is very good, so that it should be of better quality. And obviously the other one is within budget. It should come within the budget of the client for whom you are developing the software. So this is what the scope, or you can say that this is just below that you'll find that is a aim of the software engineering is, that is develop a software of high quality, of low cost, and on schedule, which is nothing but this is the mantra, is to be develop a software of high quality, low cost, and on time. Right. So entire discussion will be will revolve around these 3 points, that what are the approach we are applying so that the quality of the software should be of very high quality, and how the project manager is working, means how he is scheduling the entire working of the project so that it is delivered on time, and also if it is delivered on time, it will meet with the expectation. What is the estimate, initial estimate that you have made after while discussion with the client? So it should meet that requirement, that the delivery, and it should be within budget, and obviously that must satisfy the need of the user. So entire discussion will roam around these 3 things: development of high quality software, of low cost, and it should be delivered as per the schedule. Now, before entering in detail about of the software engineering, we'll start with the systems. What is the system? Then we'll discuss about the software, and then we'll slowly enter into the software engineering. Since I have already shared this material with you, so I'll only concentrate on the major thing present here. So this, let's focus on this diagram. Here, the evolution of most of the new system begins with the unclear, obscure, and nebulous concepts. Now, as a developer or as a project manager, once the client is there in front of you, you are understanding his requirement. Many a times you'll observe that if the project is new, you don't have much idea, your team is not having much idea. So it's very unclear, and even the client is not very comfortable. You cannot expect the client should say everything in the first meeting. And you should work as a true friend of the client. It should not happen like what you'll observe, that there are many people, say for example, you are discussing with the client to understand what the requirement the client is having. Since you are the expert of the domain for which the client is looking for a software, then there could be the possibility that client is saying, okay, I need this, I need that. And you are making a note of, okay, these are the client's requirement. And there could be the possibility that the client doesn't have any software, and they are doing the manual process. So for them, it's very difficult to understand that when they will do the transition from the manual system to the automated system, what all things need to be automated. So client may not have that particular idea. So when the client will put up his request, his requirement, you will observe that he is not very clear with his requirement and he is not able to express himself very nicely. Then you should work as a true consultant. It's not like you will hide the requirement, you will not help him. You need to do a true counselor. You should work as a true counselor for him, and you should work as a true friends to understand the complete requirement. You should help the client to come up with the exact requirement. Now, when the things comes for helping, again, there are two things. One is, you may take it in that way, since you are the one who is doing the development, you are running the company, and you must have observed that the client is very rich. So what you'll do, you will start suggesting them, you should take this, there should be this as well, you should have this particular feature also. So you may fool the client. That may happen. And by this way, since client is having no issue with the money, client will say, okay, you add this. So this way, since you are running your organization, your company, you may earn good amount of money. But that is not a role of the true counselor. You should work as a true friend, and you should help the client to come up with the exact requirement, and which is very much needed. So you need to work in both the directions. You should see that way, and you should help the client to come up with the requirement. So that is the first idea, that for any new system, you don't have the very clear idea. So you are starting with the very unclear concepts. And when you keep on analyzing, understanding the requirement, that is the second block of this diagram, which is system analysis and design. So here in the system analysis and design, there will be a number of meetings with the client. There will be a number of meetings with your team member to understand the actual requirement. And from there, the trade-off is what all things, whether you want to go for a hardware solution of those things, or you want to go for the software solution of those things. Because system could be a hardware-based system, or the system could be software-based system. So you need to identify whether you want to propose the hardware-based solution, or you want to propose the software-based solution. If you're entering into the hardware-based solution, then that is called hardware engineering. And if you're trying to satisfy the requirement of the client with the help of software, that is a software engineering that we are talking about. So there's a big trade-off between the hardware engineering and the software engineering. what things you want to what are things you want to take through hardware and what are things you want to take through software. That is you need to understand, and accordingly you need to suggest the client how the requirement will be satisfied. That is related to this particular thing. Now let's move to the software. It's a very common statements. There could be many definitions of the software. The first one says that it's a collection of programs. Second definition could be instructions which, when executed, provide desired functions and performance. Even that, this is the way how you may define software. Third could be data structures that enable the program to adequately manipulate information. That could be the third definition. Fourth is document that describes the operations and the use of the program. This is also a kind of software. So this way, what you'll observe, there are many things, first one, second, third, fourth, but if you consider all together, that will be a complete software. So last sentence, it is the set of all. So here the most important thing is, it's not like only develop, because whenever we'll say a term program is for you, the one who is developing. But when you are handling of, when you're deploying it at the client side, that is not a program, but that is a software, right? So when we say that is a software, the last point which is mentioned here is very important, which is that document that describes the operations and the use of the program. Because you know your program, it's very easy for you to understand the flow of the program. Since you wrote the program, you have a very clear idea about what are the requirements, what are the features that was required and for which you have written the program. So for you, it's very easy to understand. But for client, it's very difficult to understand. And you must have developed many GUI. So all those GUI, how you are going to handle it. So you need to make a user manual that how the entire software can be used by the client. That is the last thing, which is very important, but everyone take this very lightly. They concentrate only on writing code. If the code is giving the correct answer, it's fine. No need to worry about anything. But very few people concentrate on developing the manual or developing the document which can be used by others. So that is what the requirement that you need to think about. So you heard about this term IEEE?
Yes, sir.
What is that? What is the full form? Without using net.
International Electronics and Electrical.
And last E? International. What you said? International?
Electronics and Electrical.
And that is 2E in IEEE. What about IEEE? I asked
Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering.
Institute of
Electrical and Electronics
Engineering. But so there is no computer science, right? But standardization, that IEEE is a Institution of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. So this, what they do, they gave the various standardization. So there is no role of computer science, but you're doing everything and someone else is standardizing it. Okay, now how IEEE defines the software? IEEE defines software as a collection of computer program, procedures, rules, and associated documentation and data. So again, the underlined words are very important to understand. that it's a collection of computer programs. That is the first point which I have mentioned above. It's a collection of programs, procedures and rules. What procedures you have written, what rules you have used for, means what are the algorithms. Okay, that particular thing. And finally, all documentation and the data that is associated with your software. Is that fine? So this is what the software is. And all other things like all these are the very common thing. Again, there could be a question. This question is not for the quiz. For a quiz question, there will be a separate screen I'll share, and then you need to, through chat box, you need to answer. Okay, so the question, common question could be difference between program and software. What could be difference between program? How will you differentiate?
So program can be of a really like small or specific level, but software consists of a lot of programs and like a collection of all of them.
And what about the second question? Difference between program and programming system product?
Okay.
Any idea about the programming system product? Any idea about programming system product? It's again the same thing. Programming system product is what? It is the software. So both the questions are same. When you do the programming, what product you are going to give? So the product of programming is nothing but that will be the software. So both the questions are same. Let's move ahead. Now, I'm not going to discuss much on this. It's a characteristics of the software. It's very clear, nothing new here. It's a logical or conceptual entity rather than a physical system element. Is intangible, no mass, no volume, no color, no order. You should not say that the GUI and the colorful GUI, so software is having a color. That should not be the answer. Is developed or engineered, not manufactured. How many of you are agree with the fourth point? Does not wear out. Does not wear out.
So if it is developed well, then it might not get wear out. Like if the production is good, if it initially has some bugs, then it might face some issues. But if it is developed well, it might not wear out.
Yeah, correct. It means the objective is if it is developed for a particular requirement and it is satisfying that requirement today, then definitely tomorrow, day after, and anytime it will satisfy that particular requirement. Okay. So that is what the need, what the requirement. Now you may say that I have developed a program which was running fine, but when we made that product live, and then I'm observing that the performance has started deteriorating. When this will happen?
Too much load on the system.
Yes, correct. So thing is, when you develop that particular software, you started testing it. When you started testing it, we generally give some random data and we see how it responds. And we conclude that yes, it is. Many of time you must have observed that since your first semester till sixth semester, you must have observed that you wrote program and it was working fine. But when you started demonstrating is the instructor has given some input and it started creating problem. It means you have not tested your program for all possible values of the input domain. And that is the reason why it is saying. Say, for example, you have written a program that in an array, there are n number of elements. Do the addition of those elements. It's fine. Now you have given that program to your instructor. Sir, I am done with the program, that this program will add the elements of an array, for example. Right. Now, what instructor did, instructor has started entering the characters A, B, C, D. But you have not mentioned that you need the input domain for that particular program is set of integers. One should enter the set of integers. It should not be the character. That was not mentioned. And you'll observe that. So whenever we do even a very small program, we need to be very clear about what is the input domain, what is the output domain, what processing we are going to follow. Okay. I'm asking just a very simple question, a very simple and the common question. Please answer. Again, this is not a quiz part. Question is, it's a very common question, you must have heard about this. How to swap two integers, the value of two integers without any third integer? What is the logic? You must have heard about this question many times. Swapping of two integer value without third integer.
So we can use XOR operation.
XOR operation.
XOR operation.
Or even plus.
Only one XOR. Any other ways?
Adding then subtracting then adding also works.
Yes, also works. Any bug in doing the second thing what you said, adding, subtracting, adding?
It may overflow.
In what situation?
So like when numbers are very big, like addition may overflow.
Additional overflow, that's correct. So now these are the small things what you'll observe. Now if you check, if you have written a program using the second method what he said, that addition, subtraction and addition, and then you will observe that when doing this, if you have given the small integer, your program is running well. As soon as you have given a integer value, when you add those two integers, it will cross the limit of the integer. Then you'll observe that the answer is incorrect. Right. So you need to be very careful about what are the input domain and the output domain we are specifying, and whether we are very much concerned about this, and whether we have taken those into consideration while writing the code. So this way the things are how the things works. Again, so we'll move to the next character, is built rather than assembled. It's not, again, now you may say that there are many things plug and play, you can take this code from there. So I'm not mean to say that type of assembly. Okay, so again, you need to build, you need to find out that you need to design the interface and how the things will be taken care of. That we will have to do. And does not have spare parts. Again, you should not say that if you do the modularity concepts, we can define many functions, many modules, and that can be used so it is having a spare part. So you just nullify those way of thinking and thinking other way, comparing the hardware development and the software development. Am I clear? Now, let's move to another boring topic. See, the one thing is very clear. The people, I asked one question in previous class, that what you know about this particular course. The common answer of this question is, it's a very boring course. Okay. Fine. So now, boring, you can say, but I'll ask the same question at the end. It totally depends. If you see the entire discussion like a theoretical concept or a kind of Ramayana, then you'll feel that yes, it's a very boring subject. But that's why I'm saying many number of times you need to switch your role. you need to see that, yes, I'm sitting in my company, I'm running my company, and I'm playing the role of this. So whichever page I'm scrolling, you need to shift your role and you need to visualize what will happen after 1 year when I'll run this company, or when I'll join some company, I'll work as a part of that company. So you may, at the end, you may say that, yes, it was a boring course, but once you join the organization, then you'll say that, no, that course was very interesting, and because that is being used every day. Okay, so take it in that way. Don't don't see this like a history paper. Okay. Now, again, another term is evolution of software. I'm not going in detail about this, but I'll mostly focus on the very common thing here. Let's say, for example, the first, the early years of the computer era, that is from 1950s to mid 1960s. The first one was the batch orientation. What do you mean by batch orientation? It's before your birth, but you should know.
The second process comes after the completion of first process.
Means, how many of you have heard about batch programming?
So suppose if a program needs an input, then the second program cannot go to the CPU. It needs to wait until the first program is completed.
Okay.
In batch systems, like you are
your voice is not clear. Your voice is not clear. Please. What is do you know a file called autoexcc.bat? Anyone heard about this file? autoexcc.bat. Anyone heard about config.sys? You don't know, or you don't want to answer? Or should I start calling the name? Mohammed Jubair Ansari. Switch on your video and tell the answer.
I don't know.
You don't know. I'm not able to see your face. You heard about that term?
Okay.
Okay. Nilans. Nilans, you're not audible.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I didn't heard about this from before.
Okay. Saurav.
No, sir.
Your video?
Yes. No, sir.
Don't know. Say, for example, you're working on Windows operating system, and you want that every day when you'll switch on your system, you want certain programs should take place. Certain applications should run automatically for you. What you'll do? My question is clear? I'm again repeating the question. What I'm saying is, you are working on a Windows system or any system, and you want that as soon as you switch on your machine, after booting is over, your system should automatically run certain applications for you. You want to fix that application, that every day when you'll switch on your machine, it should run those applications.
We will add them to startup programs.
Yes. You will add them to the startup program Anyone of you tried what is that startup program? How actually it works? See, that is nothing
Is
but
it auto execute by
it's your voice is not clear. Please repeat. Someone is trying to answer.
is it auto execute dot bat file?
Right.
will
You are asking
put
the
it
question
there.
or you are answering it?
So, and like
Guessing.
I'm not confident about this, sir. Like
But
name says it.
But you are correct. So that is see what auto executive.bat file is nothing but it's a file where you will run the set of instructions that will be executed automatically once the system is on. So it's a system file. So once the booting process is over, it will search for where is the autoexe.bat and it will execute what all things are written there one by one. Okay, so that is so you do all those things through interface, but at the back you are writing it to the auto executive or autoexec.bat file. .bat means what? It's a batch file. That's why the extension is BAT. And what one of you have answered, the batch file is it's one by one, the event which is placed in a particular order, one by one, it will be executed by the processor. So the first one, then the second one, then the third one. So automatic job to job transition that will take place. Now, if we'll say about the batch processing, is there any limitation? Is there any drawback of batch processing?
Starvation.
Who is answering?
Nikita.
Yeah, please tell.
Starvation. Because
starvation means, can you make it more clear?
The jobs need to wait for more. Suppose if there is any intercommunication process, like if one process is depending upon the other process.
Which process? Because since there is only one process which is running at a time, then how the inter-process communication will take place?
So CPU time is wasted when IO events are occurring.
CPU can be?
CPU time will be wasted when input-output events are occurring.
Right, correct. See, so it means what? Effectively, what we are doing is whenever we are scheduling any job, all the jobs has to be there in a memory. Then only the processor will get the job from the memory and it will execute the things. Right. Now, in a batch orientation, in the batch programming, what the idea is, only one job will be there in a memory at a time. So if one job is there in the memory and that will be the processor has started executing it, and that job requires some input-output operations to be carried out. And as per the idea, if one job is there in the memory, second job cannot enter into the memory. So it's a wastage of the processor effort. Processor is not doing anything because the process is being processed through, it is using some input-output operations. And the second thing is, so it's a underutilization of the processor time. And the second one is your memory, where memory you have a very high RAM size, memory size, but you are not using it. Very small single job is there in the memory. So it's underutilization of both processor and the memory, which are the very scarce resources. So what is the solution? What we should do to overcome those problems?
Time sharing environment.
Yes?
Time sharing environment.
Time sharing. Time sharing between whom?
Many processes should be there in the memory.
So it means what? It's not like you'll allow one process. You'll allow more than one to enter. Right? So that you can see here the second era. Second era of computer system evaluation spanned the decade from mid-1960s to this. And the first is multi-user and multi-programming. So it's nothing but that is called, from the batch orientation of the first era, we'll move to the multi-programming. Right. So you may have multiple programs present in the memory. If multiple programs are present in the memory, you'll observe that one, Ajit Kumar, you raised your hand. Any question?
Yes, sir. In case of the batch, what if some process it's a sequential in nature? So if suppose in batch there are 5 processes, what if the third process fail? Will fourth and fifth will execute?
Please repeat.
If in the batch there are multiple processes, and suppose there are 5 processes, if the third process failed to execute, will the fourth and fifth will execute?
Yeah, because the idea here is whenever we talk about the batch processing, it says that the first process has entered into the memory and then to the processor, it is doing it. Now, execution of the process means processor is busy in execution of that particular thing. So you must have observed in the operating system that it's not like always the process will complete, right? It's successfully executed or it is terminated or aborted. That was also there in your operating system and the databases. So the same concept will be used if it is a termination or it is a abortion of the execution. So that is the end of the process. That will be considered as the end of the process. So the next one, which is there in the queue, that will be given chance to execute. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then the idea suggested was that you should have more than one process in a memory, and that is called the multi-programming. So again, if it will be served first come first serve basis. So the first process will be handed over to the processor. Processor will start executing it. If all are you must have heard about the CPU bound instruction and the IO bound instruction in your operating system. Do you remember that? Processor bound and IO bound instructions?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. It means what? If whatever program you have written, some of the statements require the processor's time and some of the statement requires the IO devices to perform certain tasks. So whenever there is a switching between the IO bound process, CPU bound process to the IO bound statements, then at that point of time, your processor is free. So the processors are free since there are more than one program there in the memory. So the second program will be taken up and accordingly the execution will be carried out. So that says this is what the idea about the multi-programming is. Is there any limitation of multi-programming? Any problem with this kind of handling the process?
Sir, if the number of processes become very large, then it might lead to thrashing because all of the processes are trying to execute and none of them is proceeding to completion.
Please repeat.
So if the number of processes are large,
okay,
then the system is trying to allocate memory to each and every process. So it will ultimately lead to thrashing. That is a situation in which none of the processes are completing and they're just like spending time.
Okay. Any other problem? So that you mentioned about say related to allocation of memory, right? Now, any other issue with multi-programming?
The consistency issue.
What type of consistency issue?
So like if there's a shared memory, like, and both the programs are like have to work sequentially, like first program and then program 2. But if that sequence is not like maintained, the data may not be consistent.
Okay. See, the idea here is, see, what I wanted to hear from your side is, in a multi-programming, the idea is you can have more than one program there, and the things what both of you have answered, it's For them, there is already another program will run, and that will take care of those particular, like consistency controller is there, that will take care of this. Memory allocator is there, that will take care of the proper allocation of the memory. Major concern was in a true multi-programming was like if there are 5 programs interested for execution, so those 5 programs has entered into the memory, then what will happen? The first program was sent to the processor for the execution, and the first program is a very big program, and almost all statements are CPU bound. Then what will happen? Starvation. The processor will continuously execute will be busy in execution of the first program, and rest all program which is already there in the memory, they are not getting their turn for the execution. So what was the solution? One of you have already answered this. What was the solution from here? One of you have referred that particular term.
Scheduling.
Time sharing. That is allocating a particular quantum of time to the first process. Then if it is done, it's fine. Otherwise, it will be context switching will take place. It will take the second job, third job, fourth job in a round robin fashion, or you must have heard about many things in your operating system. That way, each process will get an equal importance, and or somewhere it's a priority base, and so that it will be handled to reduce the starvation condition. So seeing these two era, from the first batch orientation to the multi-programming, whatever concept, whatever statement I'm saying, it's nothing but each and every statement, behind each and every statement, there are 1,000 lines of code who is handling this particular thing, and which is nothing but that what I'm targeting, the software which is developed, which were used for a batch oriented, and how that transition took place from the first era to the second era, where multi-programming concepts were used, and even in the second era, the database were introduced. So you can see the third point in the second era, it's a database first generation. The concept of the database were introduced there. Okay. Then from there, slowly it is further improved, and you can see then when you entered into the third era, it is further improved. Distributed system is in this semester, or it was in the previous semester? This semester. So whatever you'll study there, everything is means all those concepts were introduced in mid of 1970s, and means those are the things, and they keep on upgrading it, but it was introduced in mid of 70s or the late, or it took the late 1980s. And so you can see these are the very common term. It's a low cost hardware, because the importance were most on the software side. And after this, you can see that the fourth era, it's all desktop computer, artificial neural network, and everything is related to the fourth era of this. So that is how the things are there related to the evolution of this things. So nothing much, the same thing present here. You can see it's a kind of, but overall idea was just to know whether you have an idea about the batch programming, then multi-programming, and all of the things. Now let's enter into the next is the quality of software. Yes. So the next topic is software qualities. The term qualities is a very relative term. For you, something is very good. For me, I'll say like, no, it's not good. Okay, it's a relative term. So you need to identify whether quality with respect to whom. And everyone is having their own expectation. So broadly, it is categorized into 3 categories. The first one is, what is the expectation of user? What is the expectation of the producer? Producer means the developers. And what is the expectation of manager? Means it's a project manager. What quality you are looking for? So if it is a user, user, I mean to say that the client side, end user. So they want the software product to be very reliable, efficient, and most important is easy to use. That is the quality required from the user side, that it should be very reliable, efficient, and easy to use. As a developer or as an entire software development team, excluding the people who is responsible for managing the development process, they want it to be verifiable, maintainable, portable, and extensible. We'll discuss all these terms, whatever terms I'm mentioning here, like reliable, what do you mean by reliability, verifiability, maintainability, all these, each and everything we'll discuss in detail. So I just want to refer those terms here, that the producer means the entire development team. They want it should be easy to verify, easy to maintain. There has to be a portability functions, and it should be easy to extend. Similarly, when it's up to the manager who is managing the entire development process, for them, the software, what he wants the software project, wants the process of the development process to be very productive and easy to control. So when we'll say very productive, means in a less time, how the development will be possible. With the limited manpower, how the development will be possible. Right? With the minimum cost, how the development is possible. And how easy to monitor if it is again, I'm referring always the very complex and large project. So there also, there could be the issue that how it is easy to control the development process. That is what the second thing is. So these are the three main stakeholders: users, producers, and managers. So you can relate, like producer is nothing but the student and the manager is nothing but the teacher who have assigned the job. Let's say if I'm assigning some job to you, okay, you do this type of development. So your way of thinking will be different. Your way of functioning will be different. And my responsibility will be that how fast you are handling it, how fast you are handing over to me, and whether you are responding to me at the equal interval of time or not, whether you are informing me the progress properly or not, whatever plan I have made, whether it is going as per the plan or not, that all things I'll be monitoring. So that will be my way of handling the project, and your way of handling the project will be satisfying the need of the user and writing the code in such a way, because there could be the situation, let's say you have, it's not like once the meeting is over, entire requirement is understood by the entire team, then you will say that, you will hand over the software at the end, okay, this is done. That is not the best practice of any industry. What you need to do, you need to have a regular discussion with your client. You can show them, yes, you have completed up this part. So it's not possible that if you'll start showing them, yes, you have written the 10,000 lines of code and these are the statements and all, he's not bothered. He's not bothered about what is that. They want only how it will look like once it will be handed over to the client side. So what generally we do, we develop the prototype. We make a prototype and we show that, okay, once the software development will be over, it will look like this. Here, all these menus will be there. If you click here, this things will come. It will click there, that thing will come. So that way you'll able to get the complete idea about the client's expectations, and accordingly, you'll do the things. So you may require a number of intermediate meeting with the client for understanding the requirement. And what will happen, the clients, mostly the clients are very rich. What they will say that when they will start seeing how the things will look like, they may say that, I need one more thing. Can you add this particular thing there? It means what? It's called a change request. They're making because initially the requirement was freezed. Now he's making the additional requirement that I want this particular things to be added there. For client, it's very easy to put up the requirement. Yes, I want this. Is that fine? For client, it's very easy to say, yes, I'm ready to pay whatever additional amount you will charge. I'm ready to wait for the time if there will be a delay in the deployment period, I'm ready, but I need that particular feature. So what you will do, you as a developer may have a different set of mind, but your project manager will be having different set of mind. How? You will see that if I'm going to fit this particular requirement in my code, how much extra effort I will need to do. There could be a big rework, because what frame you have, what framework you have made, and accordingly you have written the code, what modularity concepts you have used. You may observe that making this small, it's a very small change, but it may affect the entire work what you have done so far. But project manager will say, no, I want this. Why he'll say this? Because he is going to get money. So he is a true administrator. He'll say that, yes, I need this to be handed over. And he'll say that, okay, since the client is ready to pay, I don't have any problem. I'll go ahead with this. And accordingly, they will make such kind of. So he'll say that that need to be done. So there, the issue will come, the second point where what we mentioned, the producer of the software wants it to be verifiable, maintainable, portable, and extensible. Means how it is easy to handle those things, to take up any change request at any point of time. You cannot say no. If your boss is ready, yes, I'm going to fulfill this requirement, you need to twist your code, you need to make a rework, but you need to handle that particular situation. So it depends on how you have designed the algorithm, whether you have visualized that there might be this kind of problem in near future, whether you have kept all those scope, whether you have taken the true modularity concepts for handling such kind of requirement or not, so that anytime anything can be added to it. So that way, the software quality may vary, depends on individuals. Here, it's up to the users, producers, and the manager. According to things will get changed. Okay. So we'll stop here, and we'll continue this in next class. But my observation is many of you have not written your name there as I suggested. It's better